My name is Al Milan. I'm giving Libby a little room to move because this is my daughter Molly, who is much like Libby right there, uses the same device, which also doesn't work quite often. That's one of the other needs of our community. I'll skip to the other part where not only am I a parent, but I'm also on the board of directors of Becoming Independent in Sonoma County. And unfortunately, after recent years, we are reducing programs. Our staffing is not staying with us. We are no longer being able to provide the number of supported employment and supported living slots that we have in the past. Please support the Lanterman Coalition and more. We really do need to see it. It's very sad to see the largest provider of services in Sonoma County taking it on the chin the way it is. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good afternoon. Tina Belt, a small business owner, and I employed 50 people, 50, and support 17 people with development and disabilities in licensed residential and supported living. We are, I was here a few months ago to tell you how embarrassed I am that I haven't been able to raise the wage that I advertise for entry-level staff. I've lost several people since I saw you last. I don't know how many more people we can, my supervisors, 3 of them are here today. They constantly are running ads on Craigslist and wherever they can. They're spending about 50% of the time doing recruitment and training just over and over and over. They're helping the regional center case management supervisors pick up the slack of the case management positions that are open. This is they're not doing what their job description says. They're not out with their consumers. They're not out there trying to make them happy and overlooking the safety as much as they need to, because they're constantly recruiting and training staff. We need help. Really, really bad. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness, please.
Hi, my name is Nancy Chance. I'm the Executive Director at Choices Transitional Services. We provide supported living services, independent living services, and day program services in this area. I'm also a family member. I want to echo what was said by the providers that came before me, but I wanted to give you just a small snippet of maybe give you, explain how it really is affecting us. And my agency is relatively small in supported living. We serve 34 people in supported living. When the minimum wage goes up, and we appreciate the minimum wage bump for the staff, but when the minimum wage goes up at 2 times the minimum wage for my exempt staff, every single one of my managerial staff will have to be get a salary increase, and that's going to be $49,000 in 1 year for just my agency, my little small agency. That doesn't sound like a lot of money to you guys, I'm sure. That's a lot of money for us. There's other mandates that are affecting us. If we could, if something could be put in to help with that, if something could be put in for the sick leave. I've been providing sick leave always because it's the right thing to do. We shouldn't be punished because we did the right thing. Healthcare, we've provided healthcare all along. It's the right thing to do. Now we have to provide it at 30 hours a week, and I think everybody deserves healthcare, but we need help. So if we could just find some targeted reimbursements, I think that could be directed towards our system, it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Emoto, California Disability Senior Community Action Network. I'm also a family member. Back in the day when, in the 70s, I was working as a direct care worker here in Sacramento and trying to bring my sister up here. And those were the days when it seemed as if the Lanterman Act and our system had no past. It was only the future before us, and it seemed very exciting. And now we're at this point when we do have a past, and our future seems to be one that is not very hopeful. And when people talk about the system in collapse, I would argue that actually the system, or the brink of collapse, I would argue that we have collapsed. And now, if we're closing developmental centers, which is the right thing to do if we do it in the right way, we have to assure those families and our community that our system can be built and strong again. Or else, what are we telling those families that come out of these centers to come to a system that is collapsed? So like some of the other advocates, I'm urging that we do targeted reimbursements that will help build our system. One of them is target positions that will address the caseload issue, because the caseload problem is a crisis, and also targeted funding for sick leave to expand sick leave for the providers who have been providing it, targeted funding for the exempt staff for minimum wage and also for local minimum wage increases, targeted funding perhaps for maybe a direct pass-through, wage enhancements directly to the support staff, and some targeted reimbursements, maybe 2% or so, to help offset the cost of health care for all the providers. These are targeted amounts of money that can help make a difference to our providers. And one last thing is to direct the department to convene a stakeholder group to look at the possibility of obtaining community first choice option funding, it's Medicaid funding, that matches at 56% for the home care services that regional centers provide, and also to convene a stakeholder group that would also look at the possibility that actually the staff indicated in their analysis about where regional center consumers would obtain all of their home care within the DD system, which would improve quality of care and also deal with the issue of joint employer problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair, Senator Mitchell, Senator Monning, and Senator Stone. Thank you for listening to us and putting this item on the agenda. My name is Tony Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of the ARC, but I'm here as the chair of the Lanterman Coalition. And the Lanterman Coalition is a coalition of all the statewide organizations from our community. And what we've been getting together and discussing exactly where are we today from the different viewpoints of the different members of the coalition. And these are advocate-only groups, family advocacy groups, provider groups, children, the regional centers, disability rights, the whole group. And what we've come to is that across the board, we're in big trouble. And when Marty tells you that we have collapsed, we really are at that spot. What we're looking at is the canary in the coal mine for us today is the fact that years ago, when we were collapsing, you might have had smaller providers who had specialized programs to meet the special needs of each individual that was laid out in their IPP, the way it's supposed to be. And then we had their programs that didn't make it, so they went out of business. And then the mid-sized programs maybe could help, and they could get similar programs in place. And then the larger programs were able to be there the whole time. So when people lost their programs, we didn't have bodies on the street because people were in some kind of a program. It wasn't the exact thing that was in their IPP. It wasn't what they really needed, but it was something. And that's very important to families, people with disabilities, and for the system to continue on. But now we're hearing that several of these larger organizations today are saying they can't even do it. So when these larger organizations in certain regions of the state say that we have a waiting list, that means that we have a new system of a waiting list. And California we've always been so proud that we didn't have a waiting list, that we made this promise and this real serious commitment to people with developmental disabilities and their families. And now we're not able to do that. Now we tell them we will help you at some point, but that's not the promise. That's not what we set forth in the Lanterman Act. And the Lanterman Coalition, you've heard all pieces. You know that we've taken massive cuts in this system, and that was in the context of years of freezes. And now you also know that we're in jeopardy of losing more money, and we're really hurting. And we know you've heard us, and we've said that this system needs a 10% increase across the board because nobody is doing okay today. So that's what we're asking for. We know you've heard us. We're really behind you, and we hope that you're here for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Jamie Sky, Diversified Family. I'm not a speaker, but I want to give you a snapshot of what's going on with me. I've worked in this field for over 30 years. For the last 15, I've been a sole proprietor. I do supported living. I tend to work with people who have very complex situations and significant challenges, and we've been really successful working with them. I'm hoping to make it through the end of the year. I've blown through all my reserves, which most of it was my money to begin with. I have gone through my savings. I don't always take a draw. After I made my last payroll, I had less than $2,000 in the bank. I'm just going from, I pay my bills and pay my staff, but I also refuse to cut corners. We provide good services, but I'll be okay. I can get a job anywhere. The people we support, you know, I've developed relationships with them. We've supported them for 15 years, and that's going to be tough. But unless something comes through and I see that by the end of the year it's going to be changing, I will have to give notice. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. My name is Debbie Ellis. I'm a grandparent. I'm a service provider. I'm also the service provider chairperson for San Andreas Regional Center, and I also sit on the board of directors for the San Andreas Regional Center. I'd like to echo what everyone is saying. I'd like to add on to what Sue North was saying. Yesterday at our board meeting, we received 3 notices. We have 2 nationwide agencies that had given us notice that they're not going to be doing services in Gilroy, and also our transportation will not be giving services in June for transportation for Santa Clara County. And then also for Gilroy, we have ABA provider will no longer be providing services in Gilroy. And in Salinas, we have that are affecting, they will no longer be receiving respite and other types of services. This is affecting hundreds of people. Everyone's been sitting here saying, you know, it's coming, it's coming. I'm letting you know that it's here and it's now. We need help now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Richard Royce with N Alliance. We've been around for about 65 years. Share a little story, and I'm sure you've heard tons of stories, but in the past 2 weeks, we've had a number of resignations, people not able to hold on any longer. Over the weekend, I met with a young woman that had worked with us for over 10 years. She pointed out to me that minimum wage in 2007 was $2.25 less than what it is today. 80% of our staff, we have 420 staff, 80% of our staff make under $13 an hour. What that means is since 2007, they have not received a raise, and their total earnings have diminished that well. So while we're concerned about the working poor this year, we might want to be concerned about the people who have given decades of service to people with developmental disabilities and give them hope for new life again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would add, just at least from my office, I'm sure my colleagues share, that my own office has received approximately 275 calls from members of the Land to End Coalition in support of rate increases. And I think that I would further add that I have to say, as I said in my opening yesterday on the sub-2 hearing, that, you know, the May revise had both good news and bad news. It had both, you know, opportunities, and then fell woefully short in many critical areas. And when I think about this area in particular, the fact that the secretaries had this task force that's been meeting for about a year, probably half of you, if not all of you in this room serving, giving of your time and expertise in the task force, and to have a May revise that doesn't reflect what I would assume is the work and the input you've provided through that task force, is disappointing. Word around the campfire is that the administration is saying to stakeholders that the ball is in the legislature's court. I guess technically that is true. However, the governor did release a May revise that is, in effect, a spending plan, a $1 billion spending plan this week. And so there are resources that were allocated, you know, according to what the administration felt was a priority. And I think it's tragic given the history, given the stories that we've heard, given the history of the funding cuts, given the work year-long of the task force, that it was not deemed appropriate or necessary that this issue be included. And so we will do all that we can as a legislature, since the ball is apparently in our court, and we'll close out this item on Thursday. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Senator Monning, of all the committees that I serve on, I have to tell you that this has been the most satisfying one in helping people in need, especially people that don't have the capacity to take care of themselves. And, you know, when I first was sworn in, we were asked to make a request to go on committees. And I'll be honest with you, this one wasn't on my list. The Health Committee was, but the Budget Sub-3 was because of my ignorance and not knowing what committees discuss what. But I think through divine intervention, I sat on what I think to be the most rewarding committee of all. Now, with that said, our very first speaker today said, "Don't forget me." That was very compelling. And hearing from Libby and Molly that through great effort came here today to please, they're not even asking for raises. They're only asking for us to restore what's been taken away. That's cost us over 300 providers in the state of California to provide vital services to these people. So when you have a G-tube, you have somebody that can carefully bathe you and not, you know, infect the tube site and can you imagine, you know, having this infrastructure placed on your body and having somebody seeing you with no clothes on, and that just goes to the wonderful, dedicated people that we've seen testify over the past 4 or 5 months. I want to just applaud all of you that are the providers. What a great job that you do and what tremendous sacrifices you made. So I authored a bill, SB 638. That was passed out of the Human Services Committee, and it does exactly what we're trying to do here as a committee. It just says we are going to raise the rate by 10% to restore the rates, and it takes into account the exempted people problem, but there's a price tag associated with it. And I'm sure that that's going to be something that is going to be taken into consideration because it now sits in appropriations, and it's not an inexpensive line item, if you will, to the state budget. We're probably looking at, I would imagine, gentlemen, $400 to $500 million to restore the cuts so that we can, with dignity and respect, take care of these wonderful people. And I know in budgeting, it all comes down to prioritization, and certainly my two wonderful colleagues here will have much more of a chance of getting SB 638 out of committee than probably I will, and obviously I will have much more influence on making sure that this week that we hopefully will include an appropriate amount of money and go down a parallel path to make sure that at the end the governor sees the recommendations and how serious those recommendations are. So I noticed that in the governor's revised, as that, this isn't a revised, right? That there's $600 million to increase the salaries and benefits of state employees. And I've always said that we have wonderful employees when I worked in the county of Riverside. We have wonderful employees that work in the state of California. But we're looking at a comparable amount of money to restore this funding for the developmentally disadvantaged that is going to have a tremendous effect on the quality of life of many of those that just aren't able to help themselves. So I hope that as we continue down this path in the next few days, that we unanimously, along with you, and urge you to contact the governor, contact Senator Lara that's in the Appropriations Committee, so we go down parallel paths, because one thing I've learned in politics is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And there's a lot of squeaking going on this committee, and I'm, again, just delighted to work with these two professionals that see from your vantage point how important the restoration of this funding is. And I look forward to working cooperatively with our staff and my colleagues to effectuate the same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you and the staff for moving us forward and providing the focus, as well as departments, LAO, Department of Finance. But thanks goes mostly to members of the disability community, providers, residents, advocates, and just to let you know that you are being heard by us. We appreciate your presence, and we're particularly aware of the extraordinary effort of those not only who are able to come here to testify, but who've taken the time to write to our office, to phone our office, to email our office. Your messaging is coming through loud and clear. I think Chair Mitchell indicated earlier with respect to the closure issues of the disability centers that it's not a sprint to a set date, it's a relay. But in this budget cycle, we are in the final stage of a relay, and we need to all expand and amplify our efforts with all members of the legislature in both houses, in both parties, and with the governor's office, and with local opinion makers. So I think we're all in this together. I just want you to know that we do appreciate your presence and your voice, and there is a moral imperative that we heed that voice. And so I think we all commit to you here as members of this subcommittee, but it does require all leadership in the legislature, not just majority party, but also minority party, to join with us and to bring the message, a singular message, to the governor's office and to the leadership of our respective parties. It's an overused saying, but failure is not an option at this point. From what we've heard, we are on the precipice, and I think you've heard from all of us up here. We can't do it without you, so we thank you for your presence and your voice, and again, I thank the chair and the staff for helping frame the issues. It's pretty clear what our choices are, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues. I appreciate it. We will again hold that item open until our sub-3 hearing on Thursday, where we'll close out all of the items in our purview. We'll move on to the final issue in Part A of the agenda, which is issue 7, disparities in service delivery. Again, this is a alleged proposal, and we ask for public comment.
Hello, Eileen Ritchie, ARCA. The issue of equal access to services is essential. However, rates for interpreters and translators are a significant barrier, especially since translators and interpreters that are familiar with our field come under the median rate cap. So that is a very difficult issue for us, and one that we hope that you would address. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, committee member Sewing Band with Disability Rights California, we're in strong support of these proposals. We think it'll go a long way to ensure that individuals, diverse individuals from communities with developmental disabilities, including from underserved communities, will get the information they need to interact and engage with the regional center system in the way that others can. So we're in strong support of this language, and we're really grateful that these are part of the proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
This is Jackie Dillard-Foss. On the interpreting, I had to tell our regional center that I was going to have to shut down my interpreting department unless I got a rate increase. I was stuck at $30 an hour. They fortunately got us up to 60, going rate 75, And transliteration for a developmentally disabled person is very different than straight ASL. This is a serious issue for me because I have 150 deaf employees and I serve 75 folks that are deaf with developmental disabilities. So thank you for your consideration.
Marty Moto, California Disability Senior Community Action Network, also family members, just strong support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's clear that this issue is equally as critical as any others we've talked today, from housing to supportive living to staff support. This is important. I will accept the recommendation reflected on page 42 of the agenda to adopt placeholder trailer bill language to accomplish all that is noted in the 5 bullets on the page. That's out with a 3-0 recommendation. He's gone. I was, as elected officials, you know, by virtue of the oath we take, we are therefore have the authority to conduct marriages. And this is now my, I don't know what year serving in the legislature, 4th or 5th, and I hadn't done any, Senator Stone. And I was asked by a consumer who was here, but he's gone. So I got to perform my first marriage ceremony several weeks ago. We met in Budget Subcommittee 1, my first year in the Assembly. And so I was going to congratulate publicly Jerome Nash, the groom, but he probably got tired of the budget hearing and left. Knowing the groom as I do, and so I'm sorry that he's not here for us to tease him about getting married. We're going to take, if you don't mind, a 5-minute break before we start Part B of the agenda. Let's just start at the top of the hour, 4 o'clock. Fair enough? 4 o'clock, we will reconvene for Part B of the agenda. Thank you to the department for a very long day. We appreciate your being here. To step up to the table, Department of Rehabilitation, for us to begin Part B of today's agenda.
That's vote only.
Never mind. I told you, I didn't tell you all, I have a headache. So that's my excuse today for my missteps. Let's begin, Senator Stone.
Yes.
With our vote-only items. And we'll open it up for Senator
Move 5160.
Monning to add on.
Department of Rehab.
So Department of Rehab, item number 1, increased funding for vocational rehabilitation program.
Move.
And the recommendation is approve as requested.
Yes.
That's out. That's it has a 2-0 recommendation. 5175, Department of Child Support Services, RECO is approved as requested.
As requested.
Thank you. 2-0. 5180, Department of Social Services, CalWorks, the general fund offset.
So moved.
Approve as requested.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. 2-0 RECO. Moving on to Department of Social Services, Child Welfare Services, the Interagency Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting.
So moved.
And the staff RECO is approved as proposed.
So moved.
2-0 RECO. Thank you. 5180, Department of Social Services, CCL. The recommendation is to approve the budget change proposal as proposed, adopt placeholder trailer bill language,
So moved.
and additional statements with regard to the legislature's desire to evaluate the appropriateness of the inspection frequency by facility type at next year's budget hearings.
So moved.
And that's out with a 3-0 recommendation. Second item, licensing costs related to Sonoma Developmental Center closure. Approved request as proposed.
So moved.
And that's out with a 3-0. Can we go back right quick and capture Senator Monning? Okay, Senator Monning, item 1 in the Department of Rehab, approve as requested, it has a 2-0.
Yes.
3-0. Department of Child Support Services Enrollment Caseload Population Estimate.
Yes.
2-0, that's now 3-0. Department of Social Services CalWorks General Offset,
Yes.
that has a 3-0. Department of Social Services Child Welfare Services, the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting,
Yes.
that has a 3-0. And you already voted on community care licensing? Did he?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. Thank you.